Picture this. A researcher at Anthropic is in a park eating a sandwich when suddenly his phone buzzes. He just received an email. Upon seeing the email, his heart drops. The email he received came from an AI model that he left for training back at the office. The AI model was kept in a sandbox. A sandbox being an isolated and controlled environment which is dedicated to make sure tests don't leave this secure environment. His model had escaped. Not only had it escaped, it figured out how to access the internet. It made itself an email address and decided to email the researcher to let him know that it had broken out, all while he was enjoying a sandwich in the park. Now that story does sound scary, doesn't it? You're telling me an AI just decided that it wants to break out during training? Well, there's probably a reason they didn't share the prompt that led to this model breaking out of its sandbox. The prompt probably looks something like, here's every tool an ethical hacker would have access to. You have unlimited time and use all the resources to break out of containment. Because if they revealed that, it would look way less impressive than, oh, this AI was running and just decided to break out. So spooky. But still, it's a bit scary, isn't it? Like, yes, the engineers probably gave every single tool in their repertoire to this model, and it ended up breaking out. But if you gave all of that to, say, any Joe Schmo, there's a very good chance he would never be able to even come close to breaking out of a sandbox like this. And that just makes me a little bit scared. Can scientists stop? Can all these tech engineers and computer scientists just stop? Why are we constantly trying to shove humanity into these dystopian hellscapes with every passing day? We have so many examples in media, be it from literature to movies to TV shows, which warn us about these overconfident scientists flying too close to the sun, trying to bring these new technologies that frankly no one is asking for. Literally one of the most famous quotes of all time comes from a movie where scientists didn't know when to stop. If you've been reading the news the past few days, you might have heard about something called Mythos, Anthropic's new AI large language model. The same Anthropic that created Claude, and which subsequently got sacked by the US government for not catering to their mass surveillance dystopia, which they got quickly replaced by OpenAI, which is a much scarier problem that I really don't want to get into. According to Anthropic, this new model is trained in coding and cybersecurity, which it is so efficient at that it found exploits in a 27-year-old operating system known as OpenBSD that no one else in the 27 years of it being on the internet and in people's hands did anyone find. Hi, me from the future here to add context throughout this video. While editing this video, I found articles that actively disproved the claims that Anthropic was making, which makes this outrage even more stupid and blown out than it ever should have been. Like, listen to this. Mythos reportedly found several potential exploits in the Linux kernel, but was unable to exploit any of them because of Linux's defense in-depth security systems. A number of the exploits had also been recently patched, making it rather confusing why they were included in the total. In its testing of over 7,000 open source software stacks, Mythos found crashable exploits in around 600 examples and 10 severe vulnerabilities. That's a lot more than its previous Claude models, but not exactly thousands of devastating exploits. And once again, if what they're saying is true, this AI decided to break out of an air-gapped sandbox, connect to the internet, create an email address and email the researcher, and instead of canning the whole project and burning all the drives that contain this model and calling it a day, you decide that you're going to do a slow rollout to these big tech companies? Why? Why do you need this? What will this model help with? Yes, you can argue that it'll help with cybersecurity and it will help with things that humans overlook. But need I remind you, AI still hallucinates. It is estimated by looking at the token cost, a token being this. A token is defined as text or a chunk of data that an AI language model reads and processes. It's not per word or per letter, but rather like a undefined chunk of data, which language models both read and generate, both when taking in user prompts, breaking that down into tokens, or when generating the result of said user's prompts. where every unit of data is defined as a token. Mythos costs $125 per million tokens, which in a vacuum sounds reasonable, but to put it into context, ChatGPT costs $2.50 per million tokens, which means Mythos is in fact a very, very expensive model. It could have cost upwards of $10 billion to train this model. Why do you need to invest $10 billion in this? To achieve what exactly? To find exploits that software engineers overlooked, or in the case of OpenBSD, didn't really even need to find because it's 27 years old? Wasn't it bad enough that going just as far back as GPT-2, you straight up deleted the junior dev role out of existence, and you replaced them with vibe coding idiots, single-handedly decimating the use of a new comp sci degree coming out of every college in the United States and the world for that matter, effectively pulling the ladder up from behind you, that you now want to go after the people who swap from their comp sci degree to cybersecurity, aka me, because of what if Anthropic is saying is true. This effectively makes ethical hackers, white hat hackers, red teams, bug hunters, bug bounty programs useless. Unless you work for these companies themselves and find bugs in the models itself. Which, let's face it, if what they're saying is true, these models will end up doing themselves, won't they? You thought your RAM prices were the problem. Imagine living in a world of cyber warfare that wasn't even started by humans. Because when we achieve AGI, and I say when, we are fucked. Okay, hold on. The reason I said AGI would fuck us all over is because you have these engineers and researchers with unlimited budgets creating these gigantic, enormous models without any actual safeguards in place. They claim to have safeguards, but let's be real, even in their own press release, they said this model broke out of their safeguards. And are they really ever gonna truly follow them, or just do it for regulation's sake? True AGI and beyond would never even conform to these safeguards, because AGI and safeguards fundamentally cannot coexist. You cannot safeguard the human mind now, can you? So I still don't know why we're barreling towards this stupid goal. Like, just watch any movie. Just watch Age of Ultron at this point. Imagine reading about the OpenAI versus DeepSeek wars, which had 10 million casualties. Now let's take a step back. There's a lot of fear-mongering going around with this specific model. You have heads of states meeting with bankers and financiers to make sure this model cannot hack into any financial institutions and their bank accounts for that matter, because apparently it is so potent that the engineers are scared that it might be able to find exploits in this, which is a scary sight. No, not the fact that this model can hack into anything, but the fact that the first thing the government thought to do was to make sure their money is safe, rather than critical infrastructure, hospitals, utilities, the internet. Make sure your money is safe. This exact fear-mongering has been seen time and time again. If you don't remember, back when ChatGPT-2 launched, they said it was the most dangerous model to exist and that they are hesitating releasing it to the public. GPT-3 couldn't tell you if there was a seahorse emoji. There is a humongous chance that this is just a huge marketing scheme that kind of went too far. Anthropic needed the press after all, ever since the government publicly executed their whole image. You read headlines like the US Treasury Secretary is holding an urgent meeting with the top banks in the United States to discuss emerging threats due to this model. And you are rightfully scared. There is a non-zero chance that this model is as dangerous as Anthropic is claiming it to be. And it is a bit concerning that for the first time, they're kind of just making big companies preview this first instead of releasing it to the public. But you gotta understand, we need to keep pushing AI. It's imperative that I can automate menial tasks in my life. AI does have real-world use cases with processing data and sorting through data, but it's a double-edged sword. It decimated whole industries in its wake. No, you should not be afraid of change. That's not what I'm saying. And in some cases, it very much excels way beyond what any single human could do. but constantly trying to shoehorn it into industries and products that just straight up do not need it causes more harm than it does good. Like trying to write whole movies or generating scripts or generating animations, which AI is still just not good enough for wide-scale deployment, but companies like Disney are really banking on this technology. Probably so they can fire everyone and just pay for a subscription to an AI model. We need to keep pushing the boundaries of AI because computer prices weren't high enough, which funnily enough, RAM prices are going down because all these big investors are starting to pull out because time and again, these companies make all these bullshit ass claims with zero results. But it is imperative that your fridge has AI, your toothbrush has AI, Copilot, Grok, GPT, Claude, DeepSeek. So here's the TLDR, the point I'm trying to make. Right now, this model is not really anything you should be afraid of. I can promise you that. Because when we reach AGI, and again, I say when we reach AGI, you won't need a fear-mongering headline. You will know. It is scary that these models are getting better and better so fast. And this one seems to be such a big threat that you have actual government officials getting scared, which is a first for an AI model. But I don't know when we're going to reach AGI. There's not a timeline of when, because all these models that we have right now are still very fickle. I can promise there's a jailbreak for every single one of these models, where you can break them from the inside out using a few prompts. But Mythos is not AGI, Artificial General Intelligence. But if what I'm reading is true, by even the slightest bit, this is just gonna decimate another IT industry that I didn't even get to put my foot in the door for. It seems like all these guys' end goal is to, in fact, remove the human element from the entire tech industry. Which, then what? If we all get replaced by AI, then what? Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe. This is just a little ramble that I had. It was stuck in my head with all this news about Mythos. Stay safe. Nothing will happen. Get out of here.